Good day, everyone. Welcome to the CEN Show, a platform where we learn from the world community. I'm your host, Roski Mascani, and this evening on the panel, we have Professor Amin Ra, and we have Brother Mashinda. Our guest this evening is Tim Tyson, and the topic of tonight is the untold truth about retirement / your home. Tim is here for the second time. And we had a good time the first time he was here, so let's do it again. Welcome, Tim. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
to
you.
have
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Roski.
Okay.
Again, I always want to acknowledge what you all are doing, the opportunity to educate the community. And so I didn't expect a whole lot of action or movement because this is something that is progressive. It's gradual because we're talking in a space that we know, but we really don't know. We desire to get to retirement. And when we get there, as Professor Rob was kind of asking, what are you saying? What's this untold truth? You're making it sound like it's a job, and to some degree, it is, right? So we're going to continue in that light. So again, I appreciate you guys affording me the option to share some Tyson theories or my experience in the space. So I just want to do something I really didn't do the
Before
last.
you before you get started,
Sure.
tell the people who you are and your background.
That's exactly where I was going. Thank you, Professor. So I am a Southern California kid, as we like to say, all of us that have roots there. I'm straight out of Compton, Centennial High School, and continued my roots as far as my development. I graduated from the University of Southern California with a degree in economics. And for almost 40 years, I've been a professional in some capacity in financial planning with various licenses, certifications, and the like to assist the community. And what really got me on this page now, again, at a heightened level, because for the most part, I operated from the standpoint of grassroots marketing, word of mouth, didn't have to advertise much. I just went about my business, growing, helping those and their respective families and friends. But coming out of the pandemic, I started to see more families and seniors in distress when a lot of the resources were removed and was back to the status quo and the norm. And the biggest thing that really caught me off guard was to see a husband and wife who were approaching the age of 80 lose their home to foreclosure. So they had approached me, long story short, and because of where they were in the process, there wasn't anything that I could do. It was too far along. And I had solutions, but the numbers didn't work. So my platform became the thought that, like a first responder, oftentimes I see the writing on the wall before many of the seniors do. And that's why I continue to use this paradisaic type setting of retirement or vacation in the background. But just to the left or right of the screen, I'd like you again to imagine that there are storms out on the horizon. And those are the storms of life that all of us face, but they can be more devastating for those who are in retirement. And so we'll get into, that in here in just a second. So what I'm hoping to accomplish is to help everyone on the call to understand, not only those of us who are not retired, because I'm not there, and I know Roski's not either, but some who might listen, or we all know somebody who is in retirement. And while a storm has maybe not hit them or hit them hard, they're out there. And so what we're trying to get everyone to understand, especially seniors, that they pay too much in fees, interest, and taxes. And in some areas, they can control those areas, and in others, they can't. So I've always learned that what do we do when we are faced with situations? We control the things that we can, and we manage the things that we can't. So the three biggest areas that I've noted in my professional career, and certainly most recently working with those who are in retirement, is it's that a person's estate, if it's not properly planned, will pay an exorbitant amount of fees through probate, court costs, executor fees. The home, fees regarding just maintenance, to keep the property up. If you have a mortgage interest, taxes, property taxes. I listened to the podcast, the discussion when the lady was on proposing something with Proposition 13, the transition to new home ownership and the higher taxes, and families are losing homes as a result of that. That again comes back to planning and understanding that that's a storm that's definitely ahead. How do we tackle that? Qualified retirement plans, that because of qualified retirement plans having required minimum distributions, that a lot of recipients take out monies not knowing what the tax consequences are based on the tax brackets that they're in, and not understanding the benefits of a qualified transfer to a Roth IRA. We call it a Roth IRA conversion, and then the benefits of self-directed IRAs and Roth IRAs. So those are all areas where people pay a lot of money in fees, interest, and taxes that they're not conscious of. So what am I proposing? Help from the community. And that help again comes from those of us who have an understanding of the space, who can articulate it to our seniors, our super seniors, especially our parents or maybe grandparents, to help them to understand where they are, what's an asset, what's not an asset, what's a potential liability, how do we address those things, and learn from it. And we are also establishing affiliate relationships and agreements that if you are the person in the middle, the trusted advisor to those seniors and those families, whether you're a professional or just an individual, you are an influencer. And because of the affiliate relationship and marketing agreements, we are paying those professionals or advocates of seniors for their work. So if you're listening, if you're on, reach out to me at the conclusion of the call. My email address is Tyson, Tyson, like the boxer and the chicken. I've had it spelled differently, but Tyson, FINGRUP @gmail.com. So it's Tyson Fin Group @gmail.com. And our message center, the number is 562-246-6604. Again, 562-246-6604. So again, what's the problem? Our seniors are in trouble. Again, as I mentioned, since the pandemic, there's been an increase in the filings of bankruptcy and foreclosure. And at the end of the day, the bottom line is, well, there might be a number of different stories as to what happened. But the thing that they all have in common is they just don't have the money to pay. They're overwhelmed because of those storms, because the storms of life, and we know this even being young, but especially when you get older, they cost money. And again, the storms are just the thing. We live long enough, you're going to experience sickness, death, inflation, repairs, services, new things, products and services needed, new transportation, helping the kids, helping the grandparents, or the kids, grandkids, I'm sorry. And then was, as I referred to hearing that other podcast that you were on, the new tax legislation that if you inherit a property and you want to retain it, even if you can you afford to pay the taxes on that now increased value that the county assessor has given it? All falls into that category of, again, the untold truth about retirement. So our focus tonight is going to be the untold truth about home. So I'm going to dig into that a little bit more. Why the home? Why the focus on the home? And it's because, as I'm going to call it, the truth that we know about the home, and then slowly engage into a little bit about the untold truth. But again, invite anybody that wants to talk more about this. We have currently a free opportunity for a consultation just to talk about where you are in that process, whether you're entering into retirement, whether you're already in retirement and you're saying, I need a financial health checkup, just as you are coming to your doctor or to the dentist for a cleaning and a review. So I'm going to do it through the stories I'll call just a fictitious couple. We'll call it like a case study. And I've named them just Hank and Doris, right? So talking to Hank and Doris, they've been talking about retirement, or even if they're already there, and they're saying, how do we get there? What do I do? Looking at my page there. how is this going to happen? And so the goal of retirement, and we all desire to get there. And the thought, of course, is to get there as quickly as possible. But sometimes it takes longer, and the normal means of getting there is age-based. But as I'll say to the younger generation or anybody listening, we can get there sooner if the numbers make sense. Because the retirement formula or financial planning formula for retirement simply is I need to accumulate enough stuff, enough wealth, enough income to replace my earned income, right? So imagine if somebody, we were an heir and they left us an estate and they said, pay them a monthly income that's the equivalent of their earned income. Rasaki could retire right now because he said, well, why am I working and I've got enough income? That's what retirement really means. But not many of us in America really experience that. It's you've worked 45 years now on the job and here's your gold watch, or you're too old and it's time to check out, or you just figure you can't do it anymore. That's the normal scenario. Then we kind of look back and say, what are my benefits going to look like? What's my Social Security? What's my pension? What's my 401k, 403b, IRA, et cetera, going to pay me? Sometimes without even counting the cost or looking at those numbers. So when I sit down with a client, in this case, Hank and Doris, my goal is this. You heard me mention this before, based on a Bible principle, and that's where Tyson theories come from. A lot of Bible principles and proverbs, and this is at Luke 14, the 28th chapter through the 30th, and I've replaced the word retire or retirement where the word in the Bible refers to building a house, but it's the same principle. And notice it says, who of you wanting to retire does not first sit down and calculate the expense or cost to see if he has enough to do it? Otherwise, he might quit his job, but have to go back to work, and all of his associates would start to ridicule him, saying, this man or woman retired, but had to come back to work, right? So that's the issue. Sometimes we do it, we make decisions without considering step 2, 3, and 4, as I often like to say, the costs or the consequences of making decisions without looking at the numbers. Many of us who are not analytical or have degrees in math or technical degrees sometimes forget those elements in our decision making. It's just, I'm tired, or I'm tired of my boss, or I feel it's time for me to go. But we're encouraged again to count the costs. And here's another scripture. Sometimes it's, again, it helps me in talking to my clients. This one is Proverbs 18:13. It says, when anyone replies to a matter before he hears the facts, it is foolish and humiliating. So I'm one of those, if I'm listening or I'm hearing something, I don't have the facts, I'm just asking questions like you did, Professor Rod. What about this? What about that? I have this, because you're consuming. You're in fact-finding mode. You're sucking it up. You're a sponge. So when we have a consultation, before I recommend anything, I need to ask a bunch of questions because I need to know what your goals, what your aspirations are. When you're done, what will you do with that asset? Will you hand it off? Will you donate it to someone else? Is it for the family, the children, grandchildren? What are they going to do with it? What are the tax consequences? All of those are a part of that discussion. Okay. So moving forward, back to my fictitious family. Hank and Doris, they're a modest couple. They have no kids. We're going to keep it simple. They're just normal folks, right? Nothing special about their income, but they are homeowners. That's our focus. Again, the untold truth about home. So Hank is really just excited for the fact that he bought a home back in the day for $100,000. And to his surprise, that property's worth $1 million. So assuming he made no other improvements, no other upgrades, just the market dictating that that property's worth $1 million, he's looking at a $900,000 return on investment. Okay, he's excited. But right now, the goal has always been, when you pay for it, don't borrow against it. So he's sitting there enjoying his leisure, his recreation, having a good time, And as we say, he's left his shoes on the mainland. He's not working anymore. His time on the books, Social Security, whatever other source of income he has is his source. And now he's departed and he's on retirement island in that chair, just soaking up the sun. Time is not even an issue. But all of a sudden, again, my role, my job is I'm communicating with him if he will listen. And just to give you some of the personalities that I deal with, I call it someone who's anchored, and meaning they're not budging to whatever it is I have to say, or even if they see a storm cloud. They're older than me most cases. They say, you know, what do you know? I've been around. I'm not budging. Then there's the other person whose head is buried in the sand and they see the storm. They might even hear me, but because of fear and not knowing what to do, uncertain as far as the information, am I credible? Is what's saying being truthful or not? They've buried their head in the sand. So I've got the anchored person who's not listening to me, the person whose head is buried in the sand. They hear me, but they don't want to deal with it. And then lastly is that person who wants information, but they're running around frantically. They're afraid, they've been scammed, and they just don't know what to do, or the storm is readily available on top of them and it's too late. Okay. So those are the personalities, but I'm hoping to reach everybody in the community, or through your efforts to reach them, to at least say, just pay attention. Like a first responder, at least hear what they have to say. And then that way you can make an informed decision. So I'm talking to Hank and Doris, and I'm reminding them again, you're not your most valuable asset anymore. You can't go work double time. You can't ask for a pay raise. You need all the income, all the resources, whether it be additional money and assets or human resources, to help you maintain your standard of living that you desired on that island. Because otherwise you're going to have to give up something or find yourself with your head underwater. So that's again the role, that's the objective. So imagine Hank and Doris are there on the island, and I'm coming to the island to tell Frank and Doris there's a storm coming and it's going to hit serious. You've got to get to higher ground. Well, to me, higher ground is not only understanding it from an educational standpoint, higher thinking and reasoning, but literally to get above to higher ground so you don't lose your life in that particular flood or the resources that you have readily available. So again, control what you can control, manage what you can't. So now one of life's storms hits, whether it's again major or not. I've warned them, the storm is present. Hank and Doris have experienced this devastation, and now they need money to either make the repairs, to cover a new roof, a new car. Doris suffered maybe some sickness as a result of the storm. My question then comes to Hank and Doris, where does the money come from? So when I ask my prospective clients or the trusted advisor, how will you pay for it? It comes down to cash that's readily available, cash that might be sitting in an institution that you say, I'll just write a check or use my debit card. Or if none of those things are available due to limited income, limited resources, because we didn't do any additional accumulating when we were working to save, to invest, or create an additional income, what typically happens is Hank and Doris will end up borrowing. Then the question is, who or where are you going to borrow from? And in most cases, because it's readily available, Hank and Doris have excellent credit, they use a credit card. And initially, it might be a single-digit rate credit card or low double-digit, maybe 14, 16%. But if their credit is not as such, or they get into trouble, now it's 18 to 20 some odd percent to possibly 36%. And before we know it, because they're on a fixed income and we're continuing to pay for things, monthly or larger purchases, they're living on the credit card when they only have a fixed income, but because they have credit, they think the credit card is a second income for them. And for the time being, it is. But as things continue, they continue to live, and the storms continue to hit and the expenses continue to increase, before you know it, their monthly expenses or liabilities have exceeded their monthly income. Oftentimes, that's when the thought or the use of the home now comes into the picture. Now, Hank and Doris have been fighting this for the longest, because the thought was, I'm debt free. But here's one thing: when we have our consultations, you may have zero debt, but you never stop having cost for managing that property that's debt free. That's a whole nother conversation that we'll have, but I'm just going to test the waters by means of a car. If all of you own cars, and let's say that car is paid for, you still have to service it. You still have to put gas and oil in it, right? Which oil and oil filters are part of the servicing. And there might be major servicing issues as well. You've got a few 100,000 miles, but you said it runs like a charm. My first car was a 66 Bug, by the way, that I got in high school. And then I got out of college, bought a car, and then bought a Carmen Ghia just because I could buy it for cash and roll. But I still had to service it, even though I didn't have any debt attached to it. With that illustration, my challenge to you, rhetorically, just on paper or mentally, is if you had that car, which I don't have any of those cars, but if you had a car like that, what's your total cost from initial ownership to now of keeping that car? Most of us don't know, right? Because who's keeping up with the annual gas costs, oil costs? We might know the insurance costs and how many years we've owned the car, but if the insurance rate went up, we don't know what it was, 10 years ago. I just know what I pay now. And we know what we paid for when we bought it. But I want you to think of that in the same context of home ownership. We normally don't know the costs, initial cost, the cost of service, maintenance, the mortgage cost. Did I refinance? All those fees attached to it. What do I pay now? We're going to help you calculate that, because that's important going forward as to what do you do with it in the future. Is it worth hanging on to? So we acquire property pretty much one of three ways. It was gifted to us by means of inheritance or otherwise. You may have won it in a lottery. You played one of those contests, a charitable event, and they're going to give you that beautiful house. Or maybe, again, you were giving to a raffle of some type or like that, or playing some game of chance and a house was an option. But most people purchase it. Those are the three ways. And if it was gifted to you, you don't have a monthly payment unless you acquired it and had an outstanding loan. But so all those will dictate the costs. Gifted, lottery winnings, or purchase to determine cost. All of those should play into the decision what I do with the property next, whether that's do nothing and pass it on with future taxes, or I'm going to look to get my return on my investment by selling it, paying the taxes and doing whatever, or a loan to pay off if I finance the property or refinance the property to get my return on investment back. So when we sit down, all those steps and understanding costs are pertinent when making a decision. Yet, most of the time as Americans, we never consider the total cost. Banks themselves will only take us down the road, even though they give us an amortization schedule, right? We don't talk costs mostly. We just talk, what's my loan balance? So it becomes a conversation of, I have a home that's free and clear. How much equity can I get? And equity, until you execute it, does nothing for us. Like in our illustration with Hank and Doris, it's $1 million property. I paid $100,000 for it. I have zero debt. I've got $1 million worth of equity. Just a paper gain. Like a stock. My stock went up X amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars. I bought it for $1, a penny a share, and now it's worth $1,000 a share. Woo, look at me. If you don't leverage it, you could lose it tomorrow when the stock price goes down. Our properties are the same way. The truth about home, until you execute the equity, is just a paper gain. A natural catastrophe could come and red tag that home, just like they did in PV with houses falling off the cliff. Nobody's going to lend you money now. So the ability to understand all those costs or the consequences or the opportunity costs that we may lose, we talk about and we sit. So it's like, well, what should I do? What can I do when that storm confronts you and you need to make a decision regarding finances? So again, what Hank again discovered that because the cost continues and he realizes the truth about home, that it's not an asset, it's a liability. Again, that similar story in thinking about this. If your property is free and clear and you owe no one, when does it pay you to cover the taxes and insurance and other estimated fees that are or services that are approximately somewhere between 13 to 15? Landscaping, pool, spa, housekeeping person, all the utilities, light, gas, water. You had to pay for TV now. When we were kids, TV was free. Now, if you got a cable package, it's over, close to $100. You still got to pay those things. So I like to think of the home like a restaurant. It is a business, right? So imagine each of us open up a restaurant and we've got a staff, a prep or sous chef. They prepare all the food, well, that we paid out of pocket. And it's Wednesday, all you can eat buffet, whatever the preferred menu is. You've paid for that all out of pocket with the hope and anticipation that guests are coming to the restaurant. Nobody shows up. What do you do with the food? You're at risk of the health department saying you can't keep this too long, or you kept it, but it wasn't at the right temperature. Another day goes by. Prepare new meals with still a little leftovers. Nobody shows up. And this goes on day after day after day, and you're still taking money out of pocket to finance this restaurant. Because you do it because you have a passion, you love food, and once somebody gets hooked on your food and your recipes, they're going to be back every week or at least every month. But day after day, month after month, nobody comes and you're still paying. At some point, the sensible person, the common sense person says, this is not a profitable business. Well, again, our desire is to show that a single family residence in a traditional setting is that restaurant. It doesn't produce income. The time you've put on the books, the income you've earned, managed your resources or your time on the books is what's keeping your home alive. Our strategies include, as we call them, senior relief strategies to either reduce your expenses, and some of them are just practical. And again, when we look at those other options as it relates to the untold truth about the home, you'll see it with a clear perspective if you're following our thinking. Otherwise, you're going to anchor down and say, nah, I'm not doing that. Or you're going to keep your head buried in the sand, but yet another storm is going to come. And you're going to reach that point, like I'm telling you, those clients that we have that are in foreclosures, like, well, what else do I have to do? Because again, the expenses and the storms have been so overwhelming that you're looking for relief. And we're saying prepare, plan before the storm hits. Because remember, a plan unexecuted is just a plan. So as we always say, without a plan, then you planned to fail. And so we walk through, we look at all the options, we talk about the untold truths to the extent that now a person says, I get it. That makes sense. And so I'm going to lean into that other podcast that you had, which is, again, having to do with those property taxes that are coming. That's a storm. It's on the horizon. It's going to hit. As your guest told us, if I'm the recipient beneficiary to my parents' property, the county, the state, they want their money based on the new value. We like the idea of a new value that Hank and Doris's property went from 100,000 and it's now worth a million. I'm the beneficiary. Well, look at my parents' property that they left me. If I'm now the child, I'm a child. I said they had no kids. Okay, now I'm that child. But what I need to know also as the beneficiary and recipient in the planning, and again, this is what we talk about, Even if we're not running the numbers, you've got a tax person, or we know tax people who's going to introduce what are the costs, what are the consequences when I inherit my parents' property, so that I am prepared and that I don't lose it. Whether tax legislation comes about or not, if I prepare and plan for it, I've got the money, so I don't lose it. So that's the proactive side that we advocate for. Regardless of what happens with the ballots, if I'm preparing my clients, if you're helping to give that message to them, then when it happens, it's like, okay, yeah, we knew it was going to increase, but we also know we're going to increase the rents if I rent that property out. Or if my brother or sister are inheriting their share and they bought me out and now they're living in the property, they're prepared to pay the taxes. Otherwise, because we're looking at the facts and we know what the storm is presenting, we can plan to sell it then if we have to and get the highest possible return. And turn that liability into a profitable single family residence, ADU plus ADU, duplex, triplex, fourplex, because now we understand retirement income planning and estate planning. So these are the discussions we have, and we're inviting all of you, the community, again, to engage each other, to keep the platform open, that we can talk about the untold truths in the era of estate planning, managing our most valuable asset, the home, our qualified retirement plans, how to avoid unnecessary taxes and have a tax-free retirement plan for the rest of our lives, and to make proper decisions to prevent paying unnecessarily fees, interest, and taxes, because we're talking about the storms that lie ahead with that insight, as opposed to it's upon us and frantically, what do I do? So in summary, again, it's an opportunity, and thank you for this platform, to discuss the untold truths of retirement. And yes, as Professor Rob was kind of alluding, you go from a worker bee to now a manager. Yeah, we want you to be in leisure world or leisure land, enjoying retirement activities, but still be conscious that this is an estate that you built with a lifestyle in retirement that we want you to maintain. And we want you to create a legacy that says we've passed the torch on to that next generation with knowledge and understanding of what they're to face from a financial planning standpoint. Because again, most of us have managed our careers, but many of us don't understand how to manage and grow wealth. So it's an introduction to that. And if we have it, let's discover how to maintain it. I can't do it by myself. I can do it with your help by, again, we teaching each other and learning. And there's some areas I don't even know, and I'm still learning. Like, again, I would ask you the question rhetorically, how many of you even know what a self-directed IRA or Roth IRA is? I just learned within the past 5 years, but I don't have any clients yet there because I'm having to convince them the benefits of why, as opposed to an IRA or Roth IRA that's managed by Fidelity or Pacific Life or the bank or anybody else. It's a whole new world and a whole new opportunity for us to invest in areas tax-free, in areas that we're more familiar with. So I'm, again, inviting you to communicate with me, give you my contact information. Current email before we go to the next level is Tyson, Tyson, Fin, Fin, group, group, @gmail.com. Or if you're reaching out to us via our message center, that number is 562-246-6604. Again, 562-246-6604. And the initial conversation is just, again, you're talking to me, the person, or if you need to be referred to someone that's bilingual or one of my associates, I'm not available, I'll do that. But right now it's just me, and it's just a conversation. We're just talking, and it's a free consultation. And if we need to go to next information, much of our information is free because I'm going to again highlight the areas where we're paying too much in fees, interest, and taxes. I have a little list. I didn't cover it, but this is part of that conversation. I have a list with fees, interest, and taxes. I'll just hit 3. Fees: home, maintenance service, food, healthcare, probate. Interest: mortgages, traditional, HELOC, credit card, personal financing, auto, major purchases. Taxes: income, property, sales, capital gains, social security, gas, estate, gift. Storms: predictable, unpredictable, sickness, death, inflation, living too long, medical expenses, home repairs, long-term care, property tax. All these things can change. Those are the storms that sometimes we don't talk about, those what ifs. So we're just going to talk freely. And then if you say, what do I do next? Then I'll tell you whether that's referring you to someone else or directing you to somebody that might already be a part of your team. And then I act as a consultant, or if it's something I can do myself, as a licensed professional in a few areas, then I'll tell you how that works as well. But right now, this is just us talking like we're doing now, free, at the barbershop, the golf course, at the places we worship, passing you on the street, at your place of work. It's just open dialogue between friends in the community, as is with the theme that the platform you guys have established, Community Education Network. So I'm happy to be a part of it. Happy to, again, share again. I hope I'm back. And the next topic will be, if we're not further elaborating than this one, would be the untold truth of retirement, your qualified retirement plan, 401k, 403b, 457, or anything that's pre-tax, to talk about the pros and cons, the benefits, or the untold truth, and open the door to dialogue as to how we can avoid paying unnecessary federal and state income taxes.
Okay, that sounds good. Appreciate it. Now I'm gonna go to the panel, see if people have questions. All right, we're gonna start with Brother Ahi. Brother Ahi, how you doing? You're in and out.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, I'm doing well. Thank you, brother.
All right.
Um,
Comment.
well, I'm just listening. I really don't have any questions at this point. I've already told you, here in Detroit, we've gone from renters to, gone from homeowners to renters. Transitions over the last 20 years. Not many of us own our own homes, but it's an interest to me because I plan on retiring in the next couple of years. I have recently taken out some loans for home improvement that I plan on having paid off before my retirement, and so this is right on time. So I'm just going to keep listening, and when I have some questions, I'll get back in.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Brother Hembrick, welcome back. Brother Hembrick. Joe? You're on mute. All right, we'll come back to you. Brother Mashinda?
Hey, how you doing?
All right.
Yeah. This is a very good information session that we're having tonight. I appreciate Brother Tyson coming on and sharing some important, very critical information that a lot of folks don't think about. I haven't retired yet, and it's somewhere on the horizon. It's closer than farther, So it's that's why it's very interesting to me. But some of the things that I was listening to, it's amazing that just today I opened up a self-directed account.
You opened a self-directed IRA?
Yeah. Well, what I do is I have a 457.
Okay.
It's supplemental to my regular retirement. with my
Uh-huh.
job.
Uh-huh.
And so what I did was, so I was interested in the stock market. That's something that we didn't grow up learning. And
That's
so
right.
I find in my later years, I'm more knowledgeable about real estate. I've actually studied a few courses in real estate as far as like the jargon, and like with Century 21. And then when I moved to Louisiana, I actually took a class in it for a whole semester. It was a real estate sales class, but anyway, I said all that to say that and I've used that knowledge in terms of some real estate purchases and things like that, and I feel comfortable doing that and making those types of transactions. Although I'm always still learning and trying to keep open mind on what I'm doing. And but back to this self-directed, I've been doing some research on certain stocks and listening to people like yourself that's grounded in the industry. And so I'm kind of a skeptic. I don't trust everything, but at the same time I do have an open mind. So finally I kind of bit the bullet, my little bullet, I would call it. And so I tapped into my 457 account. It's a deferred compensation account. And, you know, again, I I redirect. They had that self-directed account option with Charles Schwab that's in there, and so I already have a Charles Schwab account because back to what I was saying in my last 3 years of trying to figure out the stock market thing and learning, and as I get older, I like to say I'm getting wiser, and so I said, you know what, it's time to quit being a skeptic and sitting back and based on some research and there's no crystal ball. So what I did was, I transferred some of that money to the self-directed account and I actually invested. I bought me 10 shares of some NVIDIA today, and I've been following that stock, and I'm not going to sit there and gamble and be this big time day trader or anything. But my thing is to, for my next few years of working and so forth, I want to, and for the, short or long run, I want to see what that's going to do. And I plan on, maybe diversifying somewhat and with some people like yourself, people that have the knowledge, as far as that advice. But there's so much information on the internet that certain folks that I've been listening to and learning from and doing my own research. So, but anyway, I just wanted to share that you mentioned that self-directed. I just became aware of that. I read up on it before I did it. And so again, I kind of jumped in the water with that. Also, my retirement, since I'm a employed by the state.
Uh-huh.
I work in education as well.
Okay.
And so they're not taking out Social Security. So I'm going to be affected by the windfall elimination, uh, the web, which a lot of people don't know. So you're the expert. I'm gonna call you that. I'm the, I'm the apprentice or the novice that's going around, but I'm telling a lot of my coworkers, they don't know anything about that. A lot of people retire and they wait, they finish up and they're waiting on their retirement at a certain age. And I said, hey, they're gonna cut your knees off. You're not gonna get as much money as you think you're getting. I said, you need to kind of go to ssa.gov and and look at and check out your Social Security and see what you're going to get. Now I've paid into my 40 quarters, prior job, and so I'm affected by that. So I kind of sounded the alarm on that because again, this is money that people are relying on. I said, and then a lot of people don't even know what their actual numbers are going to be when they retire.
Right.
So I'm keeping tabs on mine and I'm trying to set my portfolio up and things like that. And at the same time, I'm hoping at some point these people that will mean the current what is HR 82. They have the co-sponsors to eliminate or repeal the WEP law that they have, but no, it hasn't got out of the House of Ways and Means Committee, meaning that it hasn't hit the floor. And they've tried some procedural moves and things like that in the past last year. So I'm hoping one day that they would repeal the windfall elimination provision, so I can get my, what's coming to me as far as my Social Security and to supplement my income as well. And so again, for those who don't know what the WEP is, my interpretation of it is that those who paid their 40 quarters uh, on another job or through another job, and you're affected by that and you're not paying into Social Security, you don't see the FICA deduction on your statement. That means that you're not paying into Social Security. A lot of folks don't even know what's on their statement, and therefore, at the end, they're just kind of like pipe dreaming or what have you. So I'm trying to bring that reality to people that I know, and I'm still learning about these things. But anyway, I just wanted to interject that. I appreciate you coming on tonight and sharing that because it affects me big time.
Brother Machinda, I've seen you on with the CEN because I recognize that logo, which I love. And I think you might have even been on the first time or came in late or heard a little bit the first time I was on. But I love it because that's the way I grew up. I don't know if you heard when I came on when I said, I'm straight out of Compton myself, and I had a lot of mentors. I didn't meet Professor Ra until later, but it's one of his classmates that I grew up down the street from. And when I graduated from college and he was starting his career or whatever, and I was still trying to find my way. If I was home and we were talking, he'd take me on events with him. I went to the Michael Jordan celebrity golf tournament and the extravaganza the night before. Alex Trebek was the host. Dionne Warwick sang, Dr. J passed me by, put his hands on my shoulder, and I was just like, oh, Dr. J, yeah. So our ability to communicate in all these levels, whether we're sitting down playing a game of dominoes as brothers, or we're at some other type of event sharing, like I mentioned, the barbershop, or like we're doing tonight, which again, I appreciate. If we don't share or expose each other to some of the things that we've done that we might not have been accustomed to or even allowed to do as men of color or our parents, it's incumbent upon us. So for your ability to be on that page and to hear what a self-directed IRA was, man, I'm like going, yeah, all right, the word is getting out. I'm going to double back because both of you said something, even or I don't know if I pronounced that right, brother, but as far as where you guys are, I'm going to tell you how I became affiliated or knowledge of the self-directed IRA. Other than being a licensed professional and reading about it, and I said I hadn't done anything with it. What I had been doing was the Roth IRA conversions. I know I'm getting ahead of my story as far as it coming later, but these brothers are there, and I want them to hear this. I'm not pitching anything to say, well, you guys just got to follow my show because this is free. Information is available. So I'm sitting with my community of brothers, right? So I was doing backdoor research. We were looking at a property profile, dealing with some properties. And as I'm looking at the property profile and I'm looking at the deed of trust, it wasn't funded by traditional lenders, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, or whomever. It was funded by a bunch of individuals through this private trustee lending company. So I saw, hypothetically, the Rasaki Masakani estate fund. I'm like going, wait a minute. And I keep reading and I'm seeing self-directed IRA, family trust. It was funded by private money. And so I'm like going, what's an SDIRA? Self-directed IRA. Never heard of that. So now I'm reading, Googling, then I start going into all my professional publications where I may have seen it and just didn't know anybody, was on the page. But to add to what Brother Machinda has alluded to, you can direct your retirement funds once it's in the self-directed IRA into almost anything. So what do we know about? And this is why I don't do much on the stock market and mutual funds and things like I used to. That's why I started my career. I used to work for a mutual fund company. When I learned that a lot of the CEOs and companies were manipulating their books and numbers just to inflate the stock price at the risk of shareholders, I said, nah, that's again one of the games played at corporate level with our money. So I was like, that's manipulation at its finest, the insider trading that people get caught for, what they got Martha Stewart on. She became one of the bigger scapegoats, but they've been doing that all along. So like you said, we may not fully understand those markets or know them, but one thing we do know and we can count and take a calculated risk on is real estate. So imagine those of you that are still working could roll a portion of your current money or your old money that might be in one of those accounts, IRA, 401k, 403b, 457, and say, okay, I'm going to self-direct it, and I'm be an investor, and I'm going to buy real estate. Or, hey, somebody wants to build an ADU, and they need the money for about a year. I'm going to extend it for 2 years, and I'm going to charge as a private lender. I'm going to charge 10%. You're the lender. You're holding a secure deed of trust, working with a company that says, okay, if they don't fulfill their repayment, whether it's monthly, quarterly, or balloon payment, you're foreclosing. We understand that. We know that, as opposed to the manipulation of the market, and it's based on your terms. So imagine that, take it a step further. This is why and how I started doing Roth IRA conversions. Many of my clients were public servants like you all, education, county, state, things of that nature, city government, because that's where a lot of us are, right? Of people of color, because there was, no or very limited. What's the word I'm looking for? In the selection process, there was little, biases and prejudices. There was more of a control, which is why so many of us work in the post office, right? So it was easier to go there, and the ability to have payroll deduction privileges to come right out of your check, as opposed to somebody looking at me and going, I got to write you a check. Oh no, you're black, blah, 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 blah. It was just come right out of their check. So as I learned about that, and like you mentioned, Brother Mashinda, if your pension and other funds based on your years of service as a public servant, similar to STRS, PERS, all those things, is sufficient to replace your income based on your years of service, that 457 may just sit there if you're not doing the things that you talked about, self-directed, because you're saying, I don't need the money until the required minimum distribution hits. It used to be 72 or 70 and a half. They've increased it to 72 and now 73, where Uncle Sam says, look, you haven't paid me. I need my money. So many of my clients were like, I got to take my money out, Mr. Tyson. What are we going to do with it? And so now I'm on the page with them. I had been telling them we needed to do this prior. But now they're there saying, I have to take it out. What do I do with it? And so we would sit down and look at their current tax bracket, their current income, and determine how much we take out. Because I don't want the client to bump to the next tax bracket and pay more money in taxes. We're going to pay taxes based on your relative tax bracket. So if that was take out 10 grand to not push you into the next tax bracket, we took the 10 grand, had them withhold taxes at the federal and state levels that they may have been in, and the rest rolled over into the Roth. Now I've got a tax-free bucket for the rest of their lives and the lives of their beneficiaries. And so we would sit down every fourth quarter. I still have a few clients we do that on. I'm trying to get back in that space again to get them excited about the why, and now with self-directed IRA. So we sit down every quarter. We look, what tax bracket are you in? Take out that small amount. And we keep doing this every year until we've paid Uncle Sam and the rest is in that tax-free bucket as a Roth. But now bring in self-directed Roth IRA, where we'll be moving to. Can you imagine again saying, I've got a real estate portfolio, whether I own or I'm the lender on, worth whatever, and the money is just rolling in. So now when you get to that point where if you pass away or you've got kids and it's like, let me show you what I'm doing. I've hired a property management company and we're buying property. And so now we understand this. Now that becomes our legacy, that when we pass away, we just pass the torch to this tax-free bucket that becomes a part of an estate that we can say it's still living, as opposed to it was just one house or one small plan that we took it out, the taxes are all paid, we spent the money, and we have nothing to show for it. But these type of conversations where we're kind of our ear is to the ground or to the wall to see what the affluent are doing and learning from it. And like I mentioned, there's some people already out there that will say, and I'm talking Grant Cardone, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, have information out there. So what I'm saying is nothing new. It's just saying it differently. And to us, a single family residence is a bad investment, or it's not a liability, not an asset, it's a liability. Now, so how do we couple that, since we're targeted on single family residence? I would say to anybody, first time home buyer, don't buy a single family residence that you can't convert to or add an ADU or get some income from it, especially if you're planning to stay there. If you're just there for a minute and you're on to the next and now it's a rental, that's the path. We've got to think again, passive income, additional income, so I don't have to work till I'm 65. But some of the strategies we're talking, Ahi and Mashinda, that if you can do them in advance, then you don't have to wait. And then the ability to leverage some of those strategies can either help you to defer your retirement, as far as if you're going to take out Social Security, because you've got alternative sources of income. So you can say, I don't have to take my Social Security at 62 if you're getting it. I can wait till I'm 65 or 69 because I'm getting income from these other sources that don't affect my taxes. So that's what we try and do. Again, we don't know everything, but I consider our business like the general practitioner of the medical area, where I understand all of the facets in the business and we understand it, but we're only specialists in a few. But if we need to send you to a specialist, we understand that space and we'll tell you who to go to under that category, or can refer you to a partner that's in that space. So we take on that consultative role, that even if you're in another state, we'll say, here are the dynamics. I don't know all of your state laws, but here's the foundation for you to work from, that you can now go find somebody in your state that's licensed to offer that product or service. So I love that you guys are in that. There's some beautiful things, especially like if you'll communicate with me, because I start pre-retirement, but start making heavy recommendations, or at least say, look at this if you're at least 55 and older, because I'll use this as an example. Think of this. If you had 15 years on your mortgage, if you have a mortgage and you're a homeowner, and you're saying I'm 50 and I'm going to retire when I'm 65 because the mortgage will be paid for. If I showed you a program that when you hit 55, if you didn't have a mortgage payment, but you still had the cash flow of that money, what could you do with it? The opportunity costs, again, are tremendous in the sense that they're positive, because it's like, well, look, if I don't have a mortgage payment, I can either retire early, or I can increase my contributions to my retirement plan or to my investments to grow that money. But we focus sometime, again, I don't want to have any debt. And so now I pay for the mortgage, those 15 years, I missed all that opportunity. I'm now 65. And it was like, you know what you could have done, with that money those past 15 years? So those are those conversations we talk about. Opportunity costs. It's not just the negative opportunity cost, but also the possibilities, because we're talking about the what ifs. If I put an extra $150,000 in your hand over that 10-year period. So it's similar to, even we talked about this a little bit in the first call, those who do a reverse mortgage, to understand, if I don't have a mortgage payment, I just saved $240,000 if I had a $2,000 a month payment over, a 20-year period. Wow, what could I do with it? Even if it's just sitting in the bank, you can still go make a lump sum payment towards your mortgage. It might be a balance be a little bit higher because you've been holding and the interest has been increasing. But the power of $240,000 in your hand, just because you put it in your bank as opposed to sitting into the bank that's holding your loan. I don't know too many brothers, other than those who've listened to me, to do reverse mortgage, to just change lenders and strategies to say, I've got $240,000 sitting in my account. because I changed lenders. If you heard me the first time dealing with a reverse mortgage, which is one of our solutions in that conversation, you're just changing lenders. It's a government insured the basic program. I call it the third pillar in the three-leg arena. Social Security, government program. Medicare, government program, all targeted for seniors. Home equity conversion mortgage, AKA reverse mortgage, designed by HUD, insured by FHA, was signed by Reagan when he was in office. But we think it's a bad program. We just don't, again, understand. We don't understand how to manage our most valuable assets. But in closing with this, just as far as back to the reverse mortgage, imagine if you were opening a business and the lender said to you, I'm going to hand you a check based on the value of your home and your age, and you can pay me if you want to, monthly, quarterly, or don't pay me until you vacate your business. You'd be like, wait a minute, this sounds too good to be true, which it does, right? But that's what a reverse mortgage is. So my business owners who get this are executing the reverse mortgage once they finally get it, or I hate to say this, hear what I'm saying and not look at me. I've had business owners that didn't look like us of color to tell me they wouldn't do business with me because of my color. And it wasn't so much the information, it appeared to be that they wouldn't entrust me with their financials, their financial statements, and they even see this part of the story that I'm going to tell you. The ones that I talked to told me they were apprehensive because of me, but they loved the thought that because they deal in a lot of cash, they don't have to represent how much income they really make dealing in cash and checks and credit cards to the IRS. Because if I got a multi-million-dollar home as a business, then that means I have to report so much income to cover my what? My mortgage, my property taxes, the insurance, and the expenses go with just the house, not to mention anything else. So they were overwhelmed, ecstatic, wow. But at the end of the day, they still haven't done anything because nobody's talking to them about it this way. So I'll conclude back to, if you know business owners, if that's you, you got mom, pop, cousin, nephew, and they're trying to figure out, how am I going to maintain this business? How am I going to transition from a brick and mortar business to this online business? We're doing okay, but we can't transition fast enough. If I didn't have to take money from the business to pay my mortgage, how am I going to do this? Well, if you didn't have a mortgage to pay, you could eliminate a whole lot. So help me share the message. Get in touch with me. The information is free. We monetize it when deals are executed. So imagine if we save somebody $240,000, like an attorney, we say that's a recovery fee. Here's what we charge. Or you did a transaction, you're done with the transaction, here's a fee. There's nothing up front. We've looked at those sensitive areas and issues to make sure we can stay afloat, keep each other going. We have that affiliate agreement. We pay for the work and the relationship. It is a community thing.
Okay, we want to get Professor Ra to chime in.
Appreciate what's been said. If I understand it correctly, and it's been very informative. Just a few questions for clarification. When you say untold truth about retirement, is that a marketing concept for you to market, solicit business, a catchy concept, or who is not telling the truth?
Good question. It's both. It is both, but it is an opportunity to tell the other side of the story. Because again, I'll use this as a perfect example, and this is truth. When I first started helping seniors to manage their most valuable asset, their home, I did it working with a broker. Which I am still licensed as a real estate agent and a mortgage loan officer. And I saw this vision because it's like, I can help. Because I was first asked about it. I didn't jump into reverse mortgages. Somebody asked me, what did I know about them? And being licensed is something I knew, and I'd read up on it a little bit more, and I was ready to explain it. I went and explained it, and the senior says, thank you for confirming it for us. It's a government program. They're not trying to steal our homes. It's not a scam. Can you help us? That was the very first reverse mortgage that I did. I saw that it was such an opportunity. I was like, well, why aren't more people doing it? And again, the issue was credibility. So that sent me to Wells Fargo because at the time they were the largest recognizable bank slash mortgage company doing reverse mortgages. Okay.
So the point is that the untold truth is mainly about reverse mortgages.
No. I'm going to let me finish my story and why I started with that. As I mentioned to you, reverse mortgages are readily available, government, design, and insured. So why do I call it untold? If you walk into Wells Fargo today, Bank of America today, they will not tell you that a reverse mortgage is available. So they're going to show you what's in their portfolio. Why? In the interest of their investors. So they'll tell you what's available. So my story is the untold truth that as a senior, here's what is available.
So your primary target is seniors,
55 and up.
55 and up.
Yep, because I'm in that space now. Not that I won't talk to or won't help the younger, because I was there myself and that's how we got here. But the demand for my services and whom I can assist most readily are 55 and older. Because as I talked about, seniors pay too much in what? Fees, interest, and taxes. They're on a fixed income, and here comes that storm.
Got that.
Okay.
But okay, after the initial free consultants, how much is the retainer for your services? Is it on an hourly, or is it on a project based on project services? Or because some attorneys, a phone call is $200. So but what after you have your free consultations and
That's a good question. We've designed our services to be very flexible, and we do have a cost schedule, but we allow the client to dictate and determine which route they want to go. Is a retainer? Is it based on project, or is it based on just a flat fee, an hourly fee, or it depends on what service we're providing. So I'll give you an example. If the client says we do want to do something in the area where I'm licensed, I don't charge an additional fee for that because I'm going to receive compensation from me handling the transaction, whether it's sell the property, do a traditional loan, or do a reverse loan. The lender's going to pay me out of the loan funds. But if it's in a space where I'm not providing a product, then we'll provide our fee schedule and discuss that route that the client wants to go based on the service and assistance that they need. Because it might just be direct me to an attorney, right? I just need to trust, and it's like, I'm not going to charge you for that. Here's a list, and they go.
Many people in our communities, they're not necessarily working for jobs that take out Social Security or retirement. In many cases, especially if you're working for a junkyard or working for a mom and pop store. It's not the union. Mm-hmm. So you're targeting people that generally have had jobs with benefits and things of this nature. Even though there are some people who are individuals like plumbers and electricians that set up their own type of futuristic planning for health care and things of this nature. But what I'm getting at is that one of the biggest costs for seniors is health care. Health care is more important than the money that they get. And then when they do buy homes, they generally just buy one. Most people just buy one. And that be their wealth, measurement of their wealth, how much their house is evaluated or it's, determined. But when it gets down to, there are different reasons why people retire. Some disability retirement, some forced retirement, and some, just forced out, as I was saying, and then some just, really got to the age where they say, I'm a guy. But it seemed like this type of education would be more to be a part of a school for young people to do their planning. When you get to be 70, the last thing you want to do is start mobiles. You understand? That's just, you don't want to go out and buy a brand new car and you're 75 with a payment. Some people take out the mortgage on their house and pay off the car because they get a lower interest. Housing interest is lower than just financing the car. And so those things, but it's a complicated situation for me because when you start talking about seniors, I think you're talking about working class people, not people that do not have those programs that you're talking about. They haven't paid in Social Security, so they're probably going to get some other type of supplement, and they haven't worked to get a retirement. You see that a large percentage of our communities are in that situation, and then you got the homeless. That's escalating. People saying, "Hey, some people sold their house to be homeless." You know what I mean? I don't want to pay no more bills. It's a very complicated situation with regards to dealing with this issue, but I understand you educating people 55, that's generally state retirement at the age of 55, or county or state. I know state is odd, and I worked for the state as a professor at California State University, and you can retire at 55. But most people have to go to 65. And now they're trying my age because Social Security is getting drained, that they're talking about moving the retirement age up. And people living longer.
That's right.
People living longer and things of that nature.
That's right.
So it's a complicated decision for people who are who's not even thinking about dying or getting old.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Because we weren't programmed to think that way. Most of them are programmed that there's life after death. So why worry? You can't take it with you. You understand? Your car, your house, you can't take it with you. Mm-hmm. What are the challenges when you're dealing with clients and the property have to go to probate in order because of family squabblings over it and challenges? And then this is my last point. There are people still in houses and forcing people to pay them to move out of houses that they set up to sell, put a sign out there, and people move in. And the owner don't even know it, get the lights cut on, and then it's hard for them to get the people out the property. And that entails fees. Most of them charging $5,000 for them to move out. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's complicated. Real estate is complicated. Waiting on escrows, waiting on the hidden fees, and wait. It is a challenging business. Brokers then went broke, and it's not as simple as people think it is. Now, there's some people that own 2 or 3 houses they can manage. But when you start talking about, like Russell Westbrook is going to build 21 apartments for low-income people. But they ain't the people that's going to be thinking about retirement or thinking about the projects you're talking about. So What is your clientele universe?
To acknowledge what you're saying, I agree with you. There is no one size fits all, but what we have to at least do is acknowledge all those scenarios that you mentioned and have the discussion about how do we tackle it. They used to, the old adage, they say, how do you eat an elephant? One small bite at a time. So from my perspective, whether I'm talking to a room with thousands in it to a one-on-one, and I'm gonna use you, Professor Raw, at least as far as I know, with those that I know personally on the screen, you are my senior CPT brother. So imagine I'm gonna make you 93 as opposed to being in your 70s or near 70. So if I were having that conversation with you, my question would be, first of all, to define what assets you do have, what's your income, what's your liabilities, and what are your plans if you had died yesterday? Who's to get what? How's it going to go? So we're talking about, do you have a trust? Do you have a will? Do you have powers of attorney that if you're not dead, just incapacitated? We go through those whole conversations because those are those storms that are due to hit. It's just a matter of how long do you survive, whatever.
Economic storms are always hidden.
That's right.
They're
See,
not going.
that's right. They're not going away. That's right.
All right.
I just use that storm. But again, as we're talking, we often don't think that far ahead. It's just, I'm just living for today and I'm spending because I'm alive to spend, even if it's on my credit card. So the conversation extends into all that, and it extends into the next generation. Like you talked about, even fraud. That's why I extend the invitation to, do you know somebody? Or I need you guys' help, because there is Big Mama. There is that 97-year-old that's our Apache alumni that's still alive, and he don't even have a slightest clue of any of the things we're talking about. But now you know. Now I know, and we're carrying the torch. We might say he doesn't even have an attorney to talk to, or he don't know Frank or A, B, C, and D. Well, let's make sure he gets one in front of him. Let's feed him the information. And we again create that community support, like we had the neighborhood watch clubs and all those things, to say he needs a consortium. He needs multiple professionals and advisors to put around him and protect him so he doesn't get scammed or lose his property or A, B, C, and D, right?
Yeah, one quick question.
Sure.
When you do a reverse mortgage,
Okay.
how does the interest rate go when you're not paying, but you took the money out?
Okay, good question.
How does that work?
So the interest rate at the time of a reverse mortgage, especially the federal version, is tied to whatever the current rates are. Okay. We have adjustable rates that has a 5 interest rate cap, one with a 10-point cap. So if the rate starts at 3, it can cap at 8. The other one with 10, if it starts at 3, it can go up to 13. And we also have a fixed rate. Okay, so we have 3. The interest rate is applicable to the balance. So I might have available to me a line of credit or initial funds available to me. Let's just keep it simple, of 200,000. And let's say at closing, I took out 100. So I've got 100 as a balance, but also I have 100 as a line of credit. There's an interest rate attached to my balance and an interest rate attached to my line of credit. So like a traditional line of credit, it does not grow. It's just based on what I use. So it works both ways. It's a competitive current interest rate. So the balance, if it's 100, like a credit card, if I don't make any payments, that $100,000 balance is going to increase. I can make payments on it to get it to go back down. And when I make payments, my line of credit also goes up based on the payments and the interest rate. So that's why I like it as an option, as opposed to traditional lending where I make a payment, I can't get the money back. My balance may go down, but I have no other access without reapplying.
Yeah, but see, most people who got their houses, they don't want to get a mortgage because the interest rates And that's
Watch this.
it.
I agree with that. I understand the deal with all that.
Exactly.
Watch this. Watch this though. Is retirement about managing my interest rate or about managing my cash flow?
I would say both.
Okay, watch that. I'm gonna make it simple. And I got this client now on the edge and thinking about this. This one client that I'm talking to has no children. And she's worried about if she refinances right now regularly, the rates are higher. So obviously, even if she pulls cash out, her monthly payments are going to be more. I said, I understand that. I said, if you do a reverse mortgage, your interest rate is also going to be higher, but you have no payments. So here's the bottom line.
But at the end, you have to pay.
But what if she dies 10 years from now? She's going to have to pay to somebody or whoever's inheriting the property anyway. So if the issue in retirement is to have, watch this again, remember the storm is coming. I need as much money, much resources to help me endure this storm. If I'm making payments, the lender has my money when I could have had the money. So again, if I've got a person who's making payments to a regular lender versus I'm keeping my money because this lender I'm working with now says I can keep it even if the interest rates are the same or even if a reverse mortgage is higher. At the end of the day, who's in a better position to deal with the storm? It's the person that's been saving. So now I've got peace of mind. Ooh, I had enough money to put a new roof on or to buy this or that or pay for my health care and my surgery. I've endured the storm. Where the person on the other side said, I'm over here stressing out because I've been paying my mortgage payment and I can't survive or deal with the storm because I don't have enough money. So we're talking about two different things. That's why when we're working, we pay more because I can afford to do it. Now I'm over here in retirement. I can't work 3 jobs. I can't work overtime. I'm retired. I need to manage my portfolio so I have enough income resources to stay in retirement, to keep me enjoying retirement. But if I'm paying it out, giving to everybody else, and it's increasing my liability and expenses due to inflation and everything else, I'm going to have to leave the island because I can't afford to be there anymore. That's why people are in bankruptcy. That's why they're filing foreclosure. But if they don't have to pay, I can stay here almost forever, huh? That's the benefit of reverse. That's the benefit of managing the money and realizing if I live or if my kids live, they might predecease me. I've been saving and saying I'm going to leave this to the kids, and all my kids done died ahead of me. Who am I going to leave it to now? And if I don't have an estate plan, I'm going to leave it to the state because the state said there's nobody to leave it to. But if I do an estate plan, now it can go to all my siblings, my grandkids, my cousins, whomever, because I'm in control, or leave it to my favorite foundation, nonprofit, university, Centennial High School, whatever.
Church.
Exactly. Because you're in control as opposed to, oh, I don't know. I'm going to just sit here. I'm going to keep paying my lender. And my lender going to give the money to the investors that gave me the money. The investors behind reverse saying, yeah, we'll wait. We'll get our money. But in the meantime, you use the money. Go on and buy some more property with that money. Go on vacation. Go on and help your kids or grandkids now while you're alive and teach them how to manage the money. We'll get our money in the back end. And if the property value goes up, they pay off the loan and still split the money. That's what's going to happen if you die with a regular loan. I've looked at this backwards, inside and out. That might not be the best story for everybody, but it's the best story for most. Even the person that's sitting on a property that they inherited and it's worth $1 million. Until they do something with it, it's just $1 million on paper. So even if I inherited $1 million property and I'm sitting there going, what do I do with it? How do I get my money out? I either got to sell it or I got to do a cash out refinance. And it's either a cash out refinance with payments or a cash finance repayments in reverse and no payments. The payments mean I'm giving the money back plus interest. Plus I got to pay for it to keep it up. So again, how do we stop me from going further or descending down the rabbit hole for more surprises that, oh, you didn't know the plumbing needed to be repaired? I ain't got no money to pay for that. Now I got to go over here and ask Machinda to lend me some money from his self-directed IRA. Or I got to go into my own retirement if I'm a young person to cover those repairs because we weren't thinking about that. But if it's like, oh no, we've been saving the whole time. The house pays for itself and not me, the next generation. I know of a story right now. This person was named to be the executor or power of attorney and beneficiary to an estate. And the question was asked, how will you pay for long-term care? Oh, I hadn't thought about that. And the question again, we were talking about with the other caller, if the property taxes go up and I inherit the property, how am I supposed to pay for them? Because I'm not prepared for that. You're just now telling me that, or the person was saying, you're just now telling me that? You're giving me the property. I'm going to have to sell it. But the person saying, I want you to have something afterwards. Well, if we plan it properly, not only am I prepared for the taxes, I can now maybe rent it out or do an ADU or pimp it out to it is at its maximum value based on where the location. It's all a part of, again, understanding my goals, my direction, and then we put our resources, our heads together, and we facilitate. Otherwise, the storm's on top of us, and we're sinking and going fast, and we're jumping ship, just like they jumped off the Titanic.
All right, thanks.
I clearly understand. Yeah.
I hope you guys do. It might
It's
take an
a-
extra conversation or two. This is what we do. We chop it up, we dissect it. Let me ask you this question, because it comes down to, at the end of the day, what other choices do we have? There might be a better one. I don't know of one yet in these spaces. When they do, I'll add it, and we just keep talking, add it to it. It's just another option we consider.
Yeah, well, what they do is they go and print money when they need it.
That's right. We don't have that privilege, right?
You're right.
Well,
So,
watch this.
so it's,
Hey, Roski, watch this. The biggest debtor we know right now is the United States government.
oh, yeah.
Certainly. And they owe China.
Woo-hoo! And defaulting on those loans, right? That's why they keep going in. We need more money.
Oh man,
So,
this is wild. But no, that's excellent information, man. People really need. I need to get with the program. But
Yeah,
no,
right.
it's good. But yeah. Well, we're gonna take our pause this evening, and we definitely want to get you back because we need the information. We
my
really
pleasure,
do.
brothers.
And then
I appreciate it. Yes.
people who come and look at this, then it'll put something on their mind, and they got the contact information. I got the contact information. I need to use it. So appreciate it, Brother Tyson.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Professor Rock, always a joy to be in your company. The last time, again, I was in your company. We were playing golf. The questions don't bother me because, again, I deal with it. It's my job, again, to try and alert like that first responder. You might not have thought about this. I'm trained in this. This is what we do. And I'm seeing people, the writings on the wall, and I'm just warning you. So keep them coming at me, okay?
All right.
All right.
Oh, good. Good. That's a good thing. Yeah. So next week, we have our guest is Heraldess Adama Alaji. And the topic is liberation is a cellular function. So that should be very interesting. I had a chance to sit on a panel with this lady, and she's something. So it's definitely going to be interesting. And I gotta check her out. So I'm looking forward to next Wednesday, like always. Professor Rod, we have anybody for next Tuesday?
Well, I'm working on trying to get Cornell West on.
Oh, that'd be beautiful.
I'm gonna see. You know, me and him know each other, so
Man, Cornell
it's
West,
possible. Yeah.
that'd be a blockbuster. All right.
All right.
All right, everybody.
If
Each
you
one
make that
teach
happen, you
one.
let everybody know.
Each one teach one, and Conscious Corner. We're gonna take our pause.
All right.